A relentless pursuit of geometry, enclosure and symmetry, the symbolic decoration, the calligraphy which adorns much of the building have generated the architectural concept of the first especially designed permanent Jamaat Khana of Ismailis in Canada. The setting of the building with its beautifully laid out garden provides a serene and peaceful space for contemplative spiritual experience. The sound of moving water, the touch of varied surface textures, the richness of color, and the play of light and shade upon the vision, the imbued fragrance of plants, are all reminiscent of the finest in Islamic tradition. Islamic architecture has always emphasized the need for balance between man and his environment. The Jamaat Khana is a synthesis of Islamic architecture and contemporary building design, blending harmoniously with the environment. This marvelous building, located in Burnaby, clad in a warm beige sandstone, is a timeless monument for Ismailis of Canada. Here at Inauguration Aviation in Richmond, upwards of 300 enthusiastic members of the Jamaat are eagerly awaiting to catch a glimpse of the aircraft that will bring Maulana Hazar Imam and Begum Salima to Vancouver to preside at the opening of the Burnaby Jamaat Khana Centre with the Prime Minister of Canada, Mr. Brian Mulroney. Among those present to receive Maulana Hazar Imam and Begum Sahiba are Mr. Tom Siddon, Federal Minister for Science and Technology, representing the federal government, Mrs. Grace McCarthy, and Mayor Gil Blair of Richmond, as well as Presidents Farouk Virjee and Bahadur Karim. A number of other Ismaili leaders from around the world are gathered here for this historic occasion.
Khudawin Maulana Hazar Imam, Begum Salima and Prince Amin Mohamed, Burnaby Jamaat Khana અને સેન્ટરની ઉદ્ઘાટન ક્રિયા પ્રસંગે હાજર રહેવા ગુરુવાર તારીખ 22મી ઓગસ્ટ 1985ના બપોરના વેન્કુવર ખાતે પધરામણી મુબારક ફરમાવી હતી. તે પ્રસંગે તેઓ સાહેબાઓનો આવકાર કરવા માટે ફેડરલ ગવર્મેન્ટ વતી ઓનરેબલ ટોમ સિડન, પ્રોવિન્શિયલ ગવર્મેન્ટ વતી ઓનરેબલ ગ્રેસ મકાર્થી અને રિચમન્ડના મેયર ગિલ બ્લેર અને ઇસ્માઇલી આલમમાંથી દૂર દેશથી નામાંકિત વર્લ્ડ લીડર્સ તેમજ સ્થાનિક લીડર્સ, મુખી કામણિયાઝ, મુખ્યાણી કામરાણી સાહેબાઓ હાજર હતા.
We are on location at Canada Way and Curl Avenue, the site of the Burnaby Jamaat Khana Centre, on this bright and clear Friday morning, August the 23rd. The building is a landmark of the Ismaili community and is a reflection of the beauty of this province. In attendance are several dignitaries, notably Premier Bill Bennett of BC, opposition NDP leader Mr. Bob Skelly, and Mrs. Grace McCarthy. Also present are members of the Federal Cabinet, including Finance Minister Michael Wilson, Fisheries Minister John Fraser, and Mr. Tom Siddon. The Ismaili leadership, headed by Diwan Sir Ibu Pirbhai, is represented by the World Leaders Forum, comprising Asia, Africa, the Middle East, Europe, and North America. Prince Amin Mohamed is seen greeting the invited guests as they arrive. Maulana Hazar Imam and the Begum arrived at the site at 11:25 a.m., followed by the Prime Minister at 11:30. They toured the interior of the Jamaat Khana before making an entrance into the courtyard for the start of the ceremonies.
Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, the Prime Minister of Canada, His Highness the Aga Khan, the Premier of British Columbia, and their Highnesses. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, would you please join in the singing of O Canada? Ladies and gentlemen, we will now have a recitation from the Holy Quran.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الله نور السماوات والأرض مثل نوره كمشقاة فيها مصباح المصباح في زجاجة الزجاجة كأنها كوكب دري يوقد من شجرة مباركة زيتونة لا شرقية ولا غربية يكاد زيتها ليضيء ولو لم تمسسه النار نور على نور يهدي الله لنوره من يشاء ويضرب الله الأمثال للناس والله بكل شيء عليم في بيوت أذن الله أن ترفع ويذكر فيها اسمه يسبح له فيها بالغدو والآصال صدق الله العلي العظيم وصدق رسوله النبي الكريم ونحن على ذلك من شاهدين والشاكرين والحمد لله رب العالمين. In the name of God, the most beneficent, the most merciful. God is the light of the heavens and the earth. The parable of his light is as if there were a niche and within it a lamp. The lamp enclosed in glass. The glass, as it were, a brilliant star lit from a blessed tree, an olive neither of the east nor of the west, whose oil is well nigh luminous, though fire scarce touched it. Light upon light, God doth guide whom he will to his light. God doth set forth parables for men, and God doth know all things. Lit is such a light in houses which God hath permitted to be raised to honor for the celebration in them of his name. In them is he glorified, in the mornings and in the evenings again and again.
Our chief guest, the Prime Minister of Canada, the Premier of British Columbia, Your Highness the Aga Khan, Your Highness the Begum Aga Khan, Your Highness Prince Amin Mohamed, Honorable Senators, Honorable Ministers and members of the federal and provincial governments, distinguished ambassadors and members of the diplomatic corps, Your Worships, distinguished guests all, ladies and gentlemen. It is my privilege and honor to extend to you all a very cordial welcome to this very special occasion for our community, the opening of our Jamaat Khana and Centre. We will now continue with today's proceedings with an address by the President of the Ismailia Council for Canada, Mr. Virjee.
The Right Honourable Prime Minister, the Honourable Premier, Your Highnesses, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. It is my very privileged duty this morning to extend to you all a very warm welcome as we gather here to witness the opening ceremony of our first Ismaili Jamaat Khana and Centre in Canada. Today's ceremony is an occasion of great happiness and deep spiritual significance to the Ismaili community, and we are grateful to our Prime Minister for having honored us on this first visit to British Columbia by consenting to perform the opening ceremony. Canada's first specially designed Jamaat Khana had to be a synthesis of Islamic architecture and modern building design, symbolic of the aspirations of a young Muslim community determined to create a building which was true to its own idiom and relevant to the requirements of a plural society. Islamic architecture draws its strength and creativity from the diversity of millions of Muslims stretching from our Pacific coast to the vastness of the Indian Ocean. The essentials include serenity of form, its compatibility with natural forces, with the need to strike a balance between man and his environment. This Jamaat Khana, the first we established in the New World in the 1400 years of our history, presented a unique challenge to create a facility which would express the needs and aspirations of a young Muslim community and to be a welcome addition to the larger community. This is a building in the best Islamic tradition, for in Islam, man is answerable to God for whatever he creates. Since all that we see and do is a reflection of our faith and our spiritual values, it is of fundamental importance that the environment we build upon and the quality of the social interaction that takes place is in harmony with the environment. Such is the Islamic philosophy of tolerance and respect for all, irrespective of faith and culture. These very strengths and diversities that we speak of today are often taken for granted in Canada, and this unique heritage must be built upon and preserved for a better world for all of us. In the realization of this edifice, what was most touching was that numerous individuals of different cultural backgrounds and faiths worked with each other and gave their very best in achieving a result which we hope will please not only the Ismaili community, but also the community at large. Our architects faced a unique challenge, and much credit must go to Messrs. Bruno Freschi and Associates, who I wish to congratulate on this happy occasion. Similarly, the Foundation Company of Canada, a major national contractor, deserve our fullest appreciation for their professionalism and excellent quality of workmanship. As Vancouver celebrates its centennial with the staging of Expo 1986, we take some pride today in having made a small contribution in enhancing our beautiful city. Inshallah, God willing, in years to come, our contribution will increase with the growing confidence of the younger generation. As a Burnaby project, I wish to express our very sincere appreciation to Mayor Lawarne, the Burnaby Council, and all the past mayors of Burnaby, the aldermen, and numerous individuals who gave us wonderful support and encouragement in the completion of this building. Due credit must also go to the honorary members of our community who have, with great energy, enthusiasm, and dedication, contributed so generously and given of themselves. The Right Honorable Prime Minister, the Honorable Mr. Premier, Your Highnesses, distinguished guests, I wish to express my deepest and heartfelt appreciation to you all for sharing this very happy and historic occasion with our community today, which will be remembered for years to come. Thank you.
Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, His Highness the Aga Khan.
Right Honourable Prime Minister, Honourable Premier of British Columbia, Honourable Ministers, distinguished guests. 3 years ago and 1 month, I had the honour of inviting the former Lieutenant Governor to lay the foundation stone of the building which we now see complete before us. Today it gives me the very greatest pleasure to welcome here the Prime Minister, Mr. Mulroney, and to thank him for agreeing to perform the opening ceremony. We are also privileged to have so many members of the federal and provincial governments present for an occasion which is a truly historic one for the Ismaili community in North America. In May this year, Mr. Prime Minister, you addressed members of another, much longer established immigrant community in Edmonton, namely the Ukrainians. One of their motivations for settling in Canada, you observed, was the pursuit of freedom, freedom of thought, freedom of religion, freedom to own property, and freedom from arbitrary government. Such sentiments drew Ismailis here in their turn. The majority arrived in the early 1970s as a result of political disturbances in Africa. That they have been successful in putting down roots is substantially due to the warm-hearted welcome they have been given by this great country. Where the concept of multiculturalism has real and effective meaning. It is not only freedom that Canada offers her new citizens. When immigrants arrive, they are bound to be struck by this nation comprising a mosaic of different communities, often widely differing ethnic origins. As they settle down, they become aware of a further dimension of its diversity. Canada is not content simply to assist immigrants to establish themselves in her society at the lowest common denominator of what they can contribute, but positively encourages them to express whatever is most valuable in the cultures of their origin and to be proud of it. The Ismaili community has sought to create a building here which is both Islamic in its architectural inspiration and of a quality to enhance the overall distinction of Burnaby. The Jamaat Khana is designed to be a social and cultural center, as well as a place of congregation. It expresses the Ismailis' desire to give of their best to the cultural and economic fabric of Canada. They are proud that it symbolizes their commitment both to this country's future and to their ancient heritage. Nor is there any dichotomy in this dual aim. Muslims believe their faith is not for one time, but for all times, and so there cannot be conflict between tradition and modernity. Islam is the last of the world's great monotheistic faiths to be revealed and is essentially tolerant. It entertains no opposition to earlier beliefs. On the contrary, it recognizes them as being part of God's message to mankind. To all Muslims, Shia and Sunni alike, the people of the book are the people of all monotheistic faiths, and a wide, all-embracing vision of the brotherhood of man and the unity of God is among the most fundamental of the faith's teachings. Muslims are spread around the globe, basically in the third world, from the hottest of deserts to the wettest of floodplains, to the coldest of the highest mountains. Their countries are of infinite variety and have been born from and have given birth to great civilizations. They come from numerous ethnic backgrounds and speak hundreds, if not thousands, of local languages. Yet, all 800 million share the same faith. I believe that, like Canadians, Muslims can draw strength from their diversity, but they certainly cannot be condemned if they sometimes fail. Unfortunately, the general public in the industrialized world sometimes accepts the facile and totally erroneous image that the Ummah, the Brotherhood of Muslims, is a monolithic block of believers whose national disputes are part of their religion. Until the Iranian Revolution, the term Shia was little known in the West. In the absence of better understanding, Shiism has since been shown exclusively as the faith of that revolution and its ramifications. Yet, in reality, there are far more Shia Muslims outside Iran than there are within that country, including the Ismaili community here in Canada. I feel it particularly important that the breadth and basic tolerance of our faith should be appreciated in areas where Muslims are minorities. If it is not, there is a great risk that pressure groups sheltering behind the facade of the faith, but whose real aims are perhaps more political or social or economic, will be wrongly taken as expressing its nature. Few Christians would regard the Inquisition in the past or the IRA today as being representative of Christian principles. Similarly, contemporary pressure groups within the Islamic world are not necessarily characteristic of the central message of the faith. I do not mean that the disputes and upheavals in certain Islamic countries, which so often dominate the headlines, should be disregarded, any more than such occurrences among other nations should be. The rest of the world needs to learn about their causes in order to help remove them and the threat that they constitute to world peace. What I wish to stress is that they are not born of the essence of the faith, nor does the silent majority of Muslims necessarily participate in or approve of the objectives behind them, any more than all Sikhs in India or all Africans in Uganda support extreme forms of action. Muslims living in the West can and indeed must contribute to improving the comprehension of what their faith does stand for, and to dispelling misconceptions which both in the short and the long term pose a serious threat to international understanding. Here in Canada, happily, there is the necessary open-mindedness to achieve such comprehension. Furthermore, there is, if you will forgive my borrowing a phrase of yours, Mr. Prime Minister, a tradition of constructive internationalism, typified by Canadian participation in so many United Nations peacekeeping operations. As the distinguished members of government present here today know very well, it is one thing to talk about constructive attitudes and mutual understanding in the abstract, and quite another to put those ideals into effect. In both your aid programs, sir, and your peacekeeping efforts, you have been concerned to invest in people rather than in prestige projects and programs. Canada has long appreciated what some donor nations are only just beginning to grasp, namely that the best way to build for the future is by helping people help themselves. The Arkan Foundation has enjoyed generous collaboration from both the Canadian International Development Agency and Alberta Aid in its aims of assisting educational, health, and rural development programs in the Third World. The Foundation's support is given on a completely non-communal basis, regardless of the race or religion of its beneficiaries. Additionally, Canadian universities have given notable help to the Arkan University and its Faculty of Health Sciences in Karachi, Pakistan. Over the past 3 years, 165 nurses have been trained under the guidance of McMaster University, and future teachers have come to Canada for graduate courses. At the same time, the conceptualization of the University Hospital's primary health care program has been achieved with the aid of McGill University. I mention these examples because although such cooperation attracts little publicity, it gives the Third World practical access to the technological expertise and management experience of the West. Human resources are the Third World's greatest potential asset, and developing them is the real lifeblood of international aid. In the future, I hope that the Ismaili community in Canada, having established the permanency of its home here, will become part of the reservoir of human talent on which this country can draw, both nationally and internationally. Its members will be men and women who believe in enterprise and freedom, who are inspired by this country's respect for the individual, who will work to build the strength of Canada's economy and democratic institutions. Their spirit will be Canadian. Yet from their origin they will derive an understanding of other countries, which can be harnessed to the benefit of that special perspective on international relations which has earned Canada such worldwide respect. They will be well qualified to respond to the commitment to the Third World development which you, sir, made at the recent summit conference of Western leaders in Bonn. Mr. Prime Minister, it is my privilege to ask you to declare open this building, which symbolizes the Ismaili community's confidence in its future as an integral part of the nation you lead. Thank you.
Your Royal Highnesses, Mr. Premier, members of the Cabinet, members of the House of Commons, ambassadors, distinguished guests, and friends. Your Royal Highness, as you spoke a moment ago, I couldn't help but, looking at the crowd, make a small note to myself on the back of the program, because I thought I got, as you spoke, here today a small glimpse of Canada and what this country is all about. Because surely, Your Royal Highness, only here could you have a French-speaking Prime Minister of Irish origin from Quebec opening an Ismaili Centre in British Columbia designed by an architect of Italian Catholic origin. And I think, Your Royal Highness, that says it better than perhaps statistics or anything else. What Canada is all about, a sense of tolerance and dignity. And I know that I speak on behalf of everyone here and all Canadians in extending to you, Your Royal Highness, and to your party, the warmest welcome here today, and to tell you and your people how proud we are that you have chosen Canada. I thank you in a special way for inviting me to share this important day with you. I know how much satisfaction you must all be taking in the accomplishment of such an important cultural and religious task. This building, I toured it a little earlier, makes our senses dance to the music of visual art, great tribute to the architect, and an art which tests not just our appreciation of form and light, but of the intellectual and spiritual messages revealed in the marble, sandstone, and glass brought to this beautiful city from so far away. I've come to pay tribute on behalf of the people of Canada to the religion which inspired this building, to its people, and to His Royal Highness, the Aga Khan, and to the many other members of the Ismaili community whose generosity has given life to this beautiful religious center. Our philosophy, our values are reflected in this architecture. A building such as this is a compliment to Vancouver, to our nation, and to our civilization. And today, and I know I speak on behalf of representatives of all political parties whom I see here today, from all walks of life, when I tell the leadership of the community, and you, sir, that today we gather together to celebrate the opening of a building marked by subtlety and grace, and we do so with pride and affection. Those Canadians who are not Ismailis can, I suppose, never completely share your history. However, we can and we do share the most important values of your faith. Your religion has found a home in Canada, a land that has been a refuge for all of us over the years because we're all children of immigrants. We have found a refuge from mistrust and hatred and violence for hundreds of thousands of people fleeing countries less fortunate. The tolerance and honesty and generosity, which are such an important part of your faith, are all essential elements in that unique blend of cultures, languages, and religions and histories which we know as Canada. And as Canadians, we must all continue to take what is civilized and ennobling and exciting from every culture that thrives in the rich soil of our freedom and must forever leave behind that which is ugly or violent. La tolérance, l'honnêteté et la générosité, ces éléments si importants de votre foi, sont aussi partie intégrante de l'extraordinaire mosaïque des cultures, des langues et des religions, des patrimoines que constitue le Canada. En tant que Canadiens, nous devons continuer d'emprunter à toutes les cultures qui s'épanouissent librement chez nous, de ce qu'elles offrent de civilisé, d'enrichissant et d'enthousiasmant, et bannir à tout jamais tout ce qui est de violence et de laideur. The old and changeless values of love and understanding, of tolerance and brotherhood, The values which breathe life into every major religion are welcome in Canada. And the old and sometimes equally changeless passions of hatred and intolerance that we see elsewhere are not. As victims of racial or religious intolerance, Ismailis recognize the need of many new Canadians for a fresh beginning in a free and peaceful land. You have recognized and responded well to the call that Canada makes on all of her new citizens. Not a call, never a call to give up old cultures, but a call always to bury historic enmities. To preserve our society, a uniquely civilized, I think, and prosperous and peaceful land, all Canadians, new or old, must rejoice in the energy of our differences and turn our backs on old hatreds and old misunderstandings. Our embrace of civilized diversity is our strength and our protection from the savage winds of violence which afflict so many parts of the world, winds which have indeed buffeted the Ismaili community throughout the world on many occasions, but never, never, I trust, in Canada. We derive our strength, our energy, and our freedom as Canadians from our diversity. And while you may remain separate from other Canadians in the specifics of your faith, you are joined intimately with us in your love of peace and your appreciation of what a jewel we have in this gentle, civilized, and mature country. Like any gem, Canada at times shows a rough edge, occasionally at election time, Your Excellency. But its beauty and value are evident when we hold our country up to the light of human experience. Ismailis are a very important and positive part of that human experience. 900 years ago, long before Canada began its magnificent process of nation building, your community was building universities and seats of culture in places far away from here. Today in Canada and throughout the world, through the industry of individual Ismailis and the assistance of the Aga Khan Foundation, for which we salute you, you are building religious centers, hospitals, and schools, and sharing your energy and your industry and your vision with all of us. Your religious center stands today as a proud and a noble symbol of your commitment to the beauty and eternal values of all human religion, based on love and respect and hope, and of Canada's commitment to the effervescent variety of life. Thank you, Your Highness, for permitting me and for permitting all Canadians to share this important moment with you. We wish you well. On behalf of the people of Canada, we wish you peace, and we wish you Godspeed.
Guests, ladies and gentlemen, I now invite our chief guest to unveil the plaque to mark the formal opening of the Ismaili Centre in the presence of His Highness. Ladies and gentlemen, the Prime Minister and His Highness the Aga Khan. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, our chief guest, the Right Honourable Prime Minister of Canada, Mr. Brian Mulroney. Mr. Prime Minister, on behalf of His Highness the Aga Khan and the Ismaili community, I thank you for performing the opening ceremony of our Jamaat-Khana Centre. We are particularly grateful to you, Mr. Prime Minister, for honouring our community with your presence for this very special and historic occasion. Mr. Prime Minister, I presume it would be fair to say that the Planning and Priorities Committee of your cabinet have planned their priorities appropriately. May I add that we are indeed privileged that neither the solemn affairs of state nor the anxieties of an expectant father have detained you from this occasion. On a more serious note, sir, it is our sincere hope that we would have an opportunity to welcome both you and Mrs. Mila Mulrooney during your next visit to British Columbia. Ladies and gentlemen, we are also very pleased that we've been able to hold the ceremony outdoors in the courtyard today. And I'm sure Premier Bennett will concur with me that the weather here in this province has an impeccable sense of timing. It never rains on important occasions. Ladies and gentlemen, I wish to express our sincere thanks to the Premier of British Columbia for gracing this occasion with his presence. Ladies and gentlemen, in a few moments, at the conclusion of my remarks, the platform party will leave to go into the building, and all our distinguished guests will be ushered to the social hall where refreshments will be served. The platform dignitaries will join us there in a short while. Arrangements have also been made for all our guests to view the building after refreshments have been served. Once again, ladies and gentlemen, thank you all very much for being with us today and for sharing with us the historic opening of the Ismaili Jamaat-Khana and Centre. Thank you and God bless.
To remind you of this happy occasion, and may you come back as often as you have visited us in the past.
Premier Bennett and guests, I would like to thank the Premier and the government of British Columbia for the very kind gift and the meaning behind the gift that you have offered today, and to say on behalf of the Ismaili community in BC and myself how deeply touched we have been of the way in which you have received the Ismailis in British Columbia.
Thank you. Oh, well, and Mila goes over from time to time to try to
Today marks the culmination of the idea that was conceived 7 years ago. The Jamaat Khana stands as a solid commitment of the community to this country and will be an important focus in the social and religious life of Ismailis. To echo Maulana Hazar Imam's statement, it is the community's deep hope that this Jamaat Khana Centre will become a symbol of a growing understanding in the West of the real meaning of Islam.